Mr. McNeely, this is Chair Ontiveros. Can you hear me okay?
Good afternoon, Chair Ontiveros. Yes, I hear you fantastic. How do you hear me?
Sounds good. Do you know who all will be joining us for the study session?
Our understanding, we've heard from everyone, and Shar, feel free to jump in here if you've heard anything more recently. We've heard from everyone but Commissioner Williams. She'll be at the hearing. Okay, so we had confirmation from everyone on the study session except for Commissioner Williams. Okay. At the hearing, not the study session. Thank you.
Okay. Do you know who the 928 .52 is?
Actually, I see it as a 909.
Okay, I just see the first two numbers and the last two numbers.
Okay. No, I don't know who that is. Of course, this is open to the public, so could be any of our applicants or neighboring property owners.
Okay, sounds good. I just wanted to be sure I wasn't missing a commissioner if it was one of them. All righty.
Okay. And how are we looking on commissioners so far? As of right now, Chair Ontiveros, I'm just seeing Vice Chair Burton, Commissioner Towhee, Commissioner Wilson, Commissioner Ruggles, and yourself.
Okay.
So we're still missing a couple of commissioners here.
Okay, that's what I've got as well. Although it is now 4 o'clock, we do not need a quorum for the study session. So Mr. McNeely, would you please begin the study session?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Ontiveros. Welcome, Planning and Zoning Commissioners and staff and any members of the public who are joining us. I should have the study session agenda displayed. Is everyone seeing that okay?
We are.
All right. Well, welcome to your study session for June 26th. And we would like to kick off your study session with the first, I believe, 5 agenda items are the public hearing items we anticipate bringing to your public hearing next month for your hearing on July 31st. The first 4 items are all being managed this evening by our planner, Kelly Bingham. So Kelly, if you want to go ahead and share your screen and give the commissioners an orientation to these cases.
Thank you, Mr. McNeely. Can everyone see my screen presented and hear me okay?
Yep, and it's in presentation mode. Looks good.
Perfect. This is CUP 24-18. The property owner and applicant for this request is Rogelio and Leticia Ledesma. The location is 8095 Hollow Ridge Road in Donny Park. The zoning is AR 2.5 and the property is 2.5 acres. This is in Supervisor Begay's district, and the request is for a conditional use permit to allow 2 permanent 8x40 metal storage containers. Here's a vicinity map showing the location of the property. You can see Townsend, Winona bisecting the screen here, and you can see that the subject property is just north of Townsend, Winona. Here's an aerial photo of the property. You can see that it's been developed with a single family home. You can actually see one of the storage containers already on the parcel, just to the east of the house. For a little bit of background, the zoning ordinance does allow 1 8x20 container by right. However, a CUP can be approved to allow for larger containers or more than 1 container. In this case, the applicant is requesting both. A code enforcement complaint was made about the container. I'll show you a photo from that complaint in a moment, but staff advised that a CUP could be requested to allow it. So the applicant decided to do that, but also wanted to request 2 containers instead of just the 1. Here's a photo of the container as it is right now. You can see it used to be the back of a truck. It's lifted up, but the applicant is proposing to take it off the wheels, set it permanently on the ground, and paint it. So the visual impacts would be mitigated that way. Are there any questions on this one?
Commissioner Wilson, go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Bingham, I'm curious to know if we have a standard definition of a shipping container, because what you showed us in the photo on the previous slide doesn't appear to me to be one.
We do. That was actually the first thing that I looked up when these applicants came to me. If you give me one moment, I will share that definition with you.
I trust you can just tell me.
Well, I don't remember it off the top of my head. I'll do my best though. Essentially, we don't call it a shipping container in the zoning ordinance. We call it a metal storage container. And the definition is approximately a container used for shipping. So in this case, this container does technically meet that definition.
Okay, although it's significantly different impact on the local environment, being that it's 3 feet off the ground. Okay, thank you. I appreciate your answer.
Welcome. And Commissioner Wilson, just to clarify, it will be set on the ground if approved.
Okay, but in other situations, someone could propose using this on the wheels and the jacks, and that would be acceptable. Is that correct?
You know, we haven't run into that issue as staff yet. I might defer to Mr. McNeely on what he thinks about that. We've never had anyone propose to leave it elevated that way.
Okay, thank you.
So here's the definition: metal storage container, defined as prefabricated portable metal storage containers used for storage of personal property. We have some performance standards when a property owner gets the administrative permit. If they're just doing one 8 by 20 foot container and putting it on their property, they have to place it where it's not in the setbacks, and they have to paint it to where it is either consistent with the natural environment around them or with their home or other buildings on the property. So yeah, we haven't had this come up. I mean, actually, I think that would be a good performance standard to add to our permit, is that it can't be on a chassis, it can't be on wheels, it has to be at grade level. Because I completely concur, that's a significant impact when it's elevated 3 feet off the ground on a chassis with wheels underneath it.
I agree, and thank you.
Vice Chair Burton.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay, so is it possible for you to bring that photo back up real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the photo that our code enforcement officer took. They took a few different ones, but this was the best photo that I found.
Okay, so do we have screening requirements? Because even putting it on the ground and painting it, it's still gonna really stand out.
Sure. I can totally see what you mean there. We do not typically have screening requirements for metal storage containers. We actually had 2 earlier this year where we did not require any screening. Typically, what we require is that they are painted to blend in with the natural environment or painted to match the house. Similar to like a shed or something like that, as long as it's painted nicely, staff typically does not require screening.
Okay, this may be something to consider at future zoning updates. Because I personally don't like seeing storage containers that don't at least have foliage or some kind of faux siding or something. It's just sitting there in the middle of the property. All right, well, we'll see if any neighbors complain. If we don't get any responses from neighbors, then I guess we go from there. Thanks.
Commissioner Bass, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I got in a few minutes late, and you may have gone over this, but you're asking for 2 of these things. Is that correct?
Commissioner Best, from my understanding, they're asking for this one and then one standard metal storage container, not on a chassis like this, not, the back of a truck, just a typical storage container that we usually see.
And on a 2.5 acre parcel in the AR zone, what's the standard for storage containers of this size?
Our standards are a little open to interpretation by the commission. What it says is it gives a list of standards that are required for staff approval. And then it says anything beyond that can be approved by the commission. So it's open to interpretation to you guys, what is going to be impactful to the neighborhood, what's reasonable in this area.
Okay, and so we could say 1, or we could say 2.
You could.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Bingham, it does appear that there are no other questions. So if you would like to move to the next case, please.
All right, the next case is CUP-24-23. And this is a request for an RV as a permanent residence. The request is to use an RV on a 1.93 acre parcel in the AR zone. Water would be hauled or delivered. The applicant would like to develop an RV pedestal for power that would be approved by the building division. The RV would be affixed with jack stands and paneled to conceal the wheels. The applicant is also proposing to dump waste in an improved septic system rather than needing to take it to a dump station. Here's a vicinity map showing the location of the parcel. This is in Kaibab Estates West, just north of Ash Fork in the I-40. You can see it is very close to the county line here. Here's an aerial photo of the property. You can see that it's vacant right now, but it does look like there are 2 properties to the west that also have RVs on them. And here's the site plan proposed by the applicant. You can see the septic tank, and the RV is proposed to be in the center of the property. Are there any questions on this one?
Ms. Bingham, I do not see any questions, so please go ahead and move to case 3.
Thank you, Chair Ontiveros. All right. The next case on our agenda today is CUP-24-27. This is also a request for an RV as a permanent residence on a 1.05 acre parcel in the AR zone. Water would be hauled or delivered. The applicant proposes several methods for getting power to the property. Primarily propane and a small battery would be used. Occasionally a generator may also be used as well. Waste would be dumped at a dump station. And here's the location of the property in Valley. You can see it's just south of the intersection between Highway 64 and Highway 180. There's an aerial photo of the property. You can see that most of the properties nearby are vacant, although there is one occupied parcel to the northwest. And here's the site plan that the applicant has proposed. They weren't quite sure exactly where they wanted it, but they are aware of the setbacks and they'll go within the setbacks, likely within this box labeled 1 is approximately where he wants this RV to go. Are there any questions on this one?
Commissioner Best, go ahead.
Thank you. We've been using 50 decibels at the property line. is that codified in any way? In this case?
Well, that's a great question, Commissioner Best. I don't remember if that's in our code or not. If any of the other planners know off the top of their head, please feel free to chime in.
It is codified for campgrounds and RV parks. And I'm looking in.
This is Senior Planner Zach Schwartz. There is a 50 decibel limit, and it discusses generators need to meet that limit or house the generator in something that dampens the noise to meet that limit.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, here's great question. Here's the section that we're looking at right out of 3.17 is recreational vehicle as a permanent residence. And thanks, Zach. The impact to neighbors from noise shall be minimal. Noise from generators must be mitigated with sound buffering materials such as rigid insulation or other materials and shall not exceed 50 decibels at the property line. Thanks, Zach.
And let me ask you, would you inform the applicant of that? Since it's in the code, I wouldn't think we would make a condition out of it.
Thank you,
But
Commissioner
but
Best.
sometimes we get in that gray area, so.
Sure. This is actually something that we put in the narrative form that the applicant is required to fill out. Let me see if I can share my screen with you again.
That's fine, as long as you're upfront about it, then we won't worry about it, thanks, or I won't.
Absolutely. Yep, they saw it and they signed it.
Great, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bingham, I do not see any other questions. So let's go to number 4. Did you have number 4?
I did. This is my last one for the evening.
Okay, go ahead. Thanks.
And actually,
Great.
Bob will be covering this one for us, but Bob's on vacation this week, so Kelly's just prepping it for study session.
Thank you
Go
for
ahead, Kelly.
clarifying, Mr. McNeely. Yep. I will just be presenting tonight. Any questions you have, I will take down for him to research when he gets back. All right, this is CUP-24-15. It's a request for a wireless telecommunications facility just north of Loop Road near Star School. The property owner is Mark Sorensen. The applicant is ComNet Wireless, represented by William Jenkins of CIS Communications. The zoning is G and the parcel size is 9.98 acres, but the portion used is only about 1/4 of an acre for the tower itself. And this is in Supervisor Begay's district. Here's a vicinity map showing where this parcel is. You can see Loop Road bisecting your screen. It's in red here. This parcel is in Alpine Ranchos. You can see National Forest to the west and the Navajo Reservation to the east. Here's a slightly more zoomed in view. You can see Star School. It's just a parcel or two south of the subject property. And here's an aerial photo of the property itself. It is vacant right now, but you can see a little road that the applicant is proposing to use to access the tower. The proposed development includes a 199-foot tower that does include the lightning rod, and the tower would provide broadband internet services to the local area. This tower does not currently have any cell service proposed, but carriers could co-locate on it in the future. Here's a site plan showing where the tower would be located. You can also see some topography on the site and the road that I pointed out earlier. Bob went ahead and included some photo simulations and coverage maps, so I'll quickly go through those as well. This is what the tower would look like from Loop Road. Here's what it would look like from Star Ridge Trail, a little bit closer to the tower. And finally, here's what it would look like from Star School. Here's some coverage maps depicting existing service. You can see ComNet currently has 2 towers already in this general area, but it only provides limited coverage. It's a 25 megabit download speed and a 3 megabit upload speed, which is not very fast. And here's the proposal. You can see that the coverage would be much better, 100 megabit download speed and 20 megabit upload speed. And you can see it covers a significant area that wasn't covered before. Some things for the commission to take into consideration here. The comprehensive plan does support broadband and wireless coverage. All zoning ordinance requirements appear to be met as submitted. And the applicant was able to identify a coverage gap. The commission needs to analyze whether it's a least intrusive means to address that coverage gap. This tower would rank 8 out of 10 on preferred facilities because the tower is 199 feet in the general zone, and it may be considered a disfavored facility because it's adjacent to residential areas. However, the commission could not consider RF emissions. Are there any questions on this one?
Commissioner Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Bingham, I'm curious to know, 199 feet seems like an odd number to make a tower. Is there something that occurs at 200 that would affect it differently?
There is, yeah. Often towers will be constructed at 199 feet or 195 because at 200 feet, the FAA requires lights to be put on top for aviation so that airplanes can see it if they were flying.
Okay, and the second question I have is, we're supposed to consider coverage gaps, yet there is none of the cell providers apparently have contracted to even want to use this tower. So this is just speculative in nature. Is that a correct assessment?
This tower would not provide any cell coverage, but it does provide broadband coverage. That's primarily what the applicant is proposing here, is just broadband rather than cell service.
By broadband, do you mean Wi-Fi?
Yep, internet services.
So could you go back to the coverage map for 1 second?
Absolutely. Yeah. So here's the before. This is ComNet's current coverage. And here's their proposal for Wi-Fi internet coverage afterward.
So I'm guessing based on the red streaks here that some of that is out 10 plus miles from the tower. I'm not clear that Wi-Fi can go 10 miles. So
Sure.
I guess what I would like to ask is when this comes up next month, for some more detailed coverage of exactly what this tower will consist of with respect to transmissions and things.
Sure. And just to clarify a little bit, Wi-Fi is what happens inside your house. The internet providers, like ComNet here, provide wireless internet connection. A lot of us will have wired connection in town. For example, I have a fiber connection. My Wi-Fi connects to that. So it's a little bit different. People's home Wi-Fi would tap into this. They would subscribe to ComNet in order to access this internet.
But it would have to be a cellular device to transmit those distances. We'll wait till next month and get some more details on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. These are really good questions. This is the limits of my knowledge here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Burton?
I was just wondering where this is in proximity to Roden Crater and if there's any potential impact there, and if so, have they been notified?
That's a great question, Vice Chair Burton. I do know that the applicant was required to notify within, I believe, a 1 mile radius. I would have to look it up, but that would definitely be in the staff report. If Road and Crater owns property within that radius, they were notified. However, we did not require that the applicant reach out to them specifically.
They own most of the land, I think, in the vicinity, so hopefully
Yeah.
they have notification on this. Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Wilson, do you still have additional questions?
I do not. I apologize for keeping my hand up.
Okay, it's okay. Commissioner Best.
Thank you. So no light is required by the FAA. Will there be any lights?
Thank you, Commissioner Best. There have not been any lights proposed for this tower.
Okay. I would like to be specific about that when we get to the final chapter next month, because with Road and Crater and other viewshed issues out there, it'd be great if we had, in my opinion, no lights at all. So maybe the applicant could respond to that. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll make a note for Mr. Short to take a look into that.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any additional questions on this case. So if we can please move to case number 5.
Madam Chair, Zach Schwartz has this zone change case, item number 5. Thanks for sharing your screen, Zach. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. This is case ZC 24003, the Carissa Hewitt zone change. And so this is the Munns Park area. All of this is different units of the Pinewood subdivision. And this is the subject property at the northeast corner here, where it's adjacent to Coconino National Forest, open space, and property in the RS 6000 zone. This property is 6.93 acres and it's split zone. So it's hard to see here, but later you'll see that all of this portion is RS6. That's a single family residential zone, 6 acre parcel size minimum. And there wasn't direct access to this parcel through the Pinewood subdivision unit 12. So they combined it with one of these RS 6000 pieces of property, and that the access comes through there. So that's why it's split zone. Here's an aerial photo of the subject property. So the access is coming through Puma Place and going north, where there's an existing house that the owner and applicant where they live. And this property is heavily vegetated with mature ponderosa pine. I believe there's some topography going on here, but definitely as I continue with analysis, you'll see that in your staff report, maps of that. And again, so these are open space, but there are developed properties to the south of the subject property that are developed on properties about 6,000 square feet in size. So the applicant is proposing a zone change from that split zone to RS 40,000. So that's just under an acre. An acre is 43,560 square feet. And the applicant is requesting this to allow a split from the one parcel into 5 parcels for different home sites. The applicant would keep a 3.2 acre portion of one of the parcel for their parcel, and then they would sell off the other parcels. That would be approximately 40,000 square feet. And they would create an access easement through that lot 2 of the Pinewood unit 12. And that appears, I'll show you on the next slide, the survey. The legal access easement appears to meet all requirements of the subdivision ordinance and the zoning ordinance. So this is the survey. Here's that lot 2 through Pinewood subdivision, and these dotted lines represent the access easement. So this would be the property retained by the owner and applicant at 3.2 acres. And the rest of these 4 are just over 40,000 square feet in size. So staff's considerations for this case will be, of course, the findings of fact for a zone change that include things like conformity to the comprehensive plan goals and policies. There's not an area plan for Munns Park that would apply here. Staff will look at the potential impact to neighboring properties, and staff's not seeing any at this time, but we're very early in the process here. And all of the zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance requirements would need to be met. At this point, they do appear to be so. So with that, staff, I'm happy to take any questions from the commission.
Okay, Commissioner Best.
Lowering my hand, thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Schwartz, I do not see any other hands raised. So, Mr. McNeely, will you please move to the Community Development Department update?
Yes, thank you, Chair Ontiveros. So item 1 on the department update in your packet was a letter from the Parks and Recreation Commission where requesting that you, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, initiate a zone change on some properties that are currently zoned G, MHP, and AR, and that you initiate a zone change to those properties to become OS open space. These are county-owned parcels in both the Rogers Lake and Kachina Village area. The zoning ordinance gives you, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, the ability to initiate a zone change. It also gives the Board of Supervisors the ability to initiate a zone change. And of course, any property owner can initiate a zone change on their own property. So the logic here is that the Parks and Rec Commission is requesting that the Planning Commission initiate a zone change on these properties. By doing this initiated by the Planning and Zoning Commission, it essentially saves the county our own fee, zone change fee. And it is a logical way to initiate this process, which seems to make a lot of sense as analyzed by the Parks and Recreation Commission. So Jessica, our wildlife planner, who also serves the Parks and Recreation Commission, has worked on this request and worked directly with the Parks and Recreation Commission on their request. And she has a presentation here to give you. And Jessica, if this moves forward, Jessica will be working with you on this zone change. So Jessica, why don't you go ahead and give the presentation?
Thank you, Mr. McNeely. You pretty much almost gave most of my presentation for me already. This is not very complicated. Good evening, commissioners. I am here to bring a request to the Planning and Zoning Commission from the Parks and Rec Commission, and that is to initiate a zone change, as Mr. McNeely said, on certain properties owned by Coconino County and run as public open space for low impact recreation. And they are located at Rogers Lake and Kachina Village. These are parcels that were acquired by the county, and yet now they still retain the zonings, the various zonings that they had at the time of acquisition. And these are all zonings which allow development. So the Parks and Rec Commission is requesting this rezone to open space, which would align the current use and to identify the future use of these properties in order to protect the natural features and the ecological services that these areas offer. So I'm going to show you a couple maps here. So first, here's Rogers Lake. There are 5 parcels here, which there's a rezoning request for. First is this big one, the biggest one here that takes up most of the lake. And then this 80-acre parcel here, which was recently acquired from private ownership and is now run as a community forest. And then these 3 down here, which are the Frontieri property. And these are all zoned general. And then I know this map isn't very easy to look at, but here we are at Kachina Village. This is I-17 right here. And the properties that the rezone request for is here are this little one right here, which is zoned MHP. This is, there's a little trail that comes down here from this street, and it comes down here through this one, which there's also a rezone request for. And then this one, is the main body of that pump house wash area. This is Raymond Park down here. This arrow-shaped one, there are 3 that are zoned AR right here, right where the culvert comes and drains underneath Kachina Trail. Then these 2 general parcels here next to Ancient Trail. And then lastly, this general parcel over here at Herrenberg Wash. So most of these parcels that we want to be that the Parks and Rec has asked to be rezoned are zoned general. And then we have 1 MHP and 2 that are AR. So of course, the commissioners are familiar with all of these zoning types. Open space is for preserving natural values and being kept in primarily undeveloped condition, whereas the G, AR, and MHP zones all allow development. Therefore, the PRC believes these parcels should be zoned as open space based on their use and based on the ecological, scenic, and recreational values they offer. And therefore, they have requested that the Planning and Zoning Commission initiate this zone change. And I can take any questions.
Commissioner
Commissioner-
Best?
Yeah, are the Frontier structures still out there, and what happens to them?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. They are slated for demolition on September 9th.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody knows this, but they were found to have black mold and some structural problems. And actually, if you go out there now, the chimney is just laying on the ground next to the biggest building. So there are a lot of problems with those buildings out there. And in order, I was about to say in order to bring them up to code, but even in order to find out what would be done, have to be done in order to bring them up to code would cost, I forget the number, but tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars just to find out what would need to be done. So basically, these buildings have kind of turned into a money pit for the county. So right now, the Parks and Rec department is in the process of, we have a consultant that is working on a new master plan for the Frontier property, and it's probably going to be turned into more low impact recreation, and those buildings will be gone.
Mhm. Cool. Thanks. And are there any TNE species out there? Anything exciting you'd like to talk to us about from a wildlife planner point of view?
Well, no species in particular that are especially important, but just Rogers Lake is super important because it is a huge natural wetland, and it's really important to wildlife in general. And there are very important wildlife corridors that run through that area. But no, there aren't any particular species. The spotted owl does have some habitat just to the east of the lake.
And finally, what's the thinning situation out there?
Good question. So Forest Service is to the west, and they have done a lot of thinning. There has been thinning done on the county land, but it was more with an eye toward trying to get the mature trees to grow better in the future to be good for harvesting. So it is, there are more trees on the county land than there is on the Forest Service land, which was thinning with more of an eye toward fire protection. But yes, there has been thinning work done out there.
And this would allow for thinning, this designation would allow for thinning and appropriate planning for fire to prevent fire?
Yeah, great question. Yes, it would.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so I understand this process, someone on our commission would have to make a motion to make these changes is what we're asking for here. Is that basically correct understanding?
Mr. McNeely, can you take that one?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jessica. So Commissioner Wilson, this is Jess with staff, and we would put an agenda item on your public hearing agenda next month to initiate this zone change. So take one of the commissioners, we wanted to bring this to you as a study session. knowing that it's going to take an actual action on your public hearing item to initiate the zone change. And then we'll actually go to hearing, to hold the zone change hearing in a subsequent hearing. So we will, if this sounds good to the commissioners, if this sounds like a good idea, which obviously the Parks and Rec Commission thought this was a good idea, we can place this on your agenda for public hearing next month, and it will be a motion to initiate the zone change process. You would still have to go through the zone change process in a hearing where the commissioners would have to be able to make the findings to approve a zone change. So does that answer your question on an action on next month's agenda to initiate the zone change?
Thank you, Mr. McNeely. Yes, it does. I just wanted to ensure that we will then be following the normal zone change. So neighbors will have to be notified and all those kinds of, the normal process will still be followed. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It will still be followed.
Okay, this is Chair Ontiveros, and I think I know the answer to the question I'm about to ask, but I just want to be sure. When the county acquired these properties, was the intent upon acquisition to have them be the open space and head towards the use that Parks and Rec is suggesting we move toward?
Great question. I would absolutely assume so. This was all before my time, but I know I was around when the county acquired the, maybe I can go back to the map, the 80 acres just to the east of Rogers Lake, which is now a community forest. That was private. And I do know that that was absolutely intended to tack on to the county natural area there that's already there at Rogers Lake. And it, in addition, has a conservation easement on it and has been gotten funding as a community forest. So I assume that that was always the intent, but I wasn't around and I can't say that for 100% sure.
Oh, okay. Mr. McNeely, do you know?
Madam Chair, we've all understood the intent of those properties as managed by the county, by County Parks and Rec, is to manage them as open space. That's certainly something we can address when we bring this to you for a zone change hearing. Is what was the, why did the county acquire these properties? We all know they are currently being used for open space purposes, but we can certainly answer that question. So great discussion for your study session.
Okay, I see that our legal counsel's hand is up. So Ms. Lane, please go ahead.
This is not a legal comment. I just know that a few weeks ago, the Parks and Rec, they gave a presentation to the Board of Supervisors about, I think, the ones that are the Frontier properties. And it was my understanding based on that presentation that those ones were acquired for open space and that they're required to be used for conservation easements and open space. So that maybe answers part of the question.
Oh, okay, it does. It answers the question on the Rogers Lake properties. I'm going to call them that. I also think that probably just because of the relationship in Ms. Simmons, can you go back to the map for Kachina Village, please? Due to the location of like the one, oh, what is it? I guess it would be kind of the northwest one, that large one that I believe, Ms. Simmons, you indicated that was the pump house wash area.
This kind of J-shaped one?
Yes. That's the pump house wash area, right?
Yes, correct. Okay.
And then the other ones, they also were acquired by the county. And I know that you don't know the history on them. I guess what I'm trying to make sure of is that, because this is something that the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to be requesting be done. So now I become one of the requesters, if you will. And so I just want to be sure that what this zoning is going to fits the intent of why Coconino County acquired these properties to begin with, that there wasn't some other purpose in them when they acquired them. Because there is, I believe, There are a couple of AR zoned properties. The rest of them are general, I believe. Am I right
There-
with that, Ms. Simmons?
There's one MHP. It's this little one up here.
Right. Okay. And so the county obviously acquired these properties for a reason. Because they
Yes,
don't acquire every property. So I'm just kind of thinking that they were acquired for the purpose for which we are being asked to do this rezone for.
I can certainly talk to some folks at Parks and Rec and confirm that. I was thinking I have been around when they acquired this arrow-shaped one and these two, which they used to build a trail. Like I mentioned, you can walk down along here and then walk along this part. So I
Okay.
know at least these two and this one were acquired to expand on this one. But as far as the original acquisitions, I can ask over at Parks and Rec about that. And just while I have the floor, since I don't know how to raise my hand while I'm sharing, back to Rogers Lake, there are conservation easements on all 5 of those parcels. So and those are pretty much go into, they're meant to kind of be forever as far as I know. So that is definitely the intent for the Rogers Lake ones.
Oh, okay, okay, and I get that. I just I know that this may be a wild hypothetical here, but on some of the ones that are not G, if the county, because we do have this affordable housing issue, so on and so forth, and I was just wondering if the county could possibly have acquired any of those for perhaps that use.
I will find
So-
out.
Yeah, I would appreciate it because in my mind, if the county acquired these properties for that specific use to be open space, then this makes sense. So I will leave it there and thank you, Ms. Simmons, for getting that information for me. All right, Ms. Burton and then Ms. Shaw, you can file Vice Chair Burton.
So the AR properties, those are the ones right at the bend in the road, correct? Where it goes underneath? Is that correct?
Yes.
Simmons?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I can't even fathom an idea of where the county would want to build on those because it's all watershed.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
I think we're pretty safe in the assumption that that was not meant for affordable housing because the houses would get underwater.
Gotcha. Okay, good. And that's good information. That's why all of us coming from different areas can speak to that. So thank you, Vice Chair Burton.
Yeah, that whole area there is a natural spring that
Yeah.
feeds into Pump House Wash and it floods regularly.
Okay. Got it. Okay, thank you. Ms. Shaw, you are up next. And then Ms. Simmons, you can follow Ms. Shaw.
Oh, I was just going to add one more thing while we're on the topic is the people who I was going to ask at Parks and Rec about the original purpose, they are the exact people who told me to make sure that those parcels were on this list to change to OS, if that helps with your question at all.
I guess it does. And actually Vice Chair Burton's description of what these properties are, that further makes sense to me, that especially with them feeding into Pump House Wash, that I can't imagine that it wasn't the intent of the county when they acquired these properties. But my questions are on record now. So if it should ever come up, at least someone will know that that question was asked and has been addressed. So, okay, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Chair Ontiveros and Commission. I just wanted, if I could share my screen for one moment, we might get a little bit more information about this question. I'm looking at the Kachina Village Area Plan, and the map in there shows these parcels designated as open space. So that's just another source of information. Can you see the screen?
Yep, we're seeing it.
I
Okay.
see the
You could probably zoom a little,
pretty small.
How's that?
a little better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's better. Okay, that gives me even more peace of mind that we are doing what these properties were intended to become. That's what I wanted to be sure of. So this actually helps a lot, Ms. Shaw. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't have any other questions and I don't see any other hands raised. So Mr. McNeely, let's go ahead and move to number 2.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Number 2 and 3 are your monthly updates on the Flagstaff Regional Plan update and the County Comprehensive Plan update. So Melissa will give you an overview of those 2 items.
Thank you, Jess. I'll go ahead and
Mhm.
share screen. I have just a few slides to show you regarding the regional plan update. So give me a second. Need to reshare. Hold on.
We're seeing it, just not in presentation mode.
Okay, hold on a second. Stop sharing. Okay, there we go. I'm going to give you a short, very short presentation about the timing of the regional plan update, but also to give some more detail about what the Flagstaff Regional Plan Committee has been doing since they started meeting in November. So this chart here shows you the chapters or the elements, if you will, of the draft regional plan that have been reviewed thus far. The committee, Flagstaff Regional Plan Committee, began meeting in November. Those were primarily organizational meetings. So they began with actually reviewing draft chapters in February. So you can see from February of 2024 through actually just this month on the 18th, the Regional Plan Committee has looked at resource stewardship and resilience, parks, open space and recreation, water resources, energy, social and economic systems, infrastructure and public safety, and transportation. And then on the 18th of this month, what's called a parking lot cleanup. Those were lingering questions and issues that the committee needed to come back to and re-review. Coming up in July, on July 10th, is a chapter that may be of much interest to this commission, and that's the growth and land use, as well as the implementation chapter. So this is what the committee has reviewed thus far, and then they will review an entire compilation of the entire plan in August on the 27th. And I just wanted to take a moment and take you on a short tour of the Flagstaff Regional Plan website, because all of these documents are located there. Okay, so here is the website. The tab up here for the committee gives you some details about the committee, who they are, and then if you scroll to the bottom, it does begin with their first meeting, where you can review all of the agendas, their packets, and if you really want to get into some detail, look at the recording of the meeting. So all of these are available on the Regional Plan website. And then the plan chapter drafts are being posted here on this other tab. Currently, there are 2 available. These are the chapters that have gone through committee review and have been revised. So their staff is working on posting these here as they're available. But the original version of the draft that the committee reviewed is available right here. You would just click on this agenda, and then it's going to download a packet for you. So just to give you a little tour of what's available from the regional plan. And then just quickly back to the presentation. I'll just pause here for a second. Are there any questions about what's being done? Because the next slide I have for you talks in detail about the upcoming schedule for public review and public hearings.
Okay, Michelle, hold on. The first thing I would like to ask is for everyone to turn their cameras off, please. And okay, so we still have an individual with the camera on. It looks like it is Philip David Haskett. Mr. Haskett, could you turn your camera off, please? Thank you. Ms. Shaw, just a quick question. Again, I feel like I know the answer, but on the energy one, that's the fourth one down. Can you just quickly define what that is?
Yes, so energy is a required element per state statute for cities, towns, and by the way, for counties as well. And we need to talk about the energy sources that are available to the community. For the county, we in particular need to talk about incentives for efficient use of energy and then policies for greater use of renewable energy, just as an FYI for the county side of planning. But this would talk about our utilities, our electric utilities, our gas utilities, that sort of topic. That chapter also does talk about what's going on in terms of some of the city's plans to promote more energy efficiency. So the draft plan where there are policies directly related to the city of Flagstaff, those are clearly earmarked for city of Flagstaff only. For instance, if it refers to the city of Flagstaff carbon neutrality plan, or if it's something that's related directly to the county, that's earmarked specifically for the county. So there's a clear delineation between policies that are applicable to one or the other jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the FYI regarding the energy element for the Coconino County Comprehensive Plan. Okay, I do not see any other questions. So Ms. Shaw, please go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, many of these elements, if you will, are required per statute. So we'll talk about those in more detail when you start getting into the review of this. The next slide is a kind of a matched up timeline. The blue, if the lighter color represents the timeline for the FRP, which is the Flagstaff Regional Plan, and then the orange color, the darker color, represents timeline for the Coconino County Comprehensive Plan. So just trying to give you a picture of how these plans will go down the road together. And just as a quick reminder, the Flagstaff Regional Plan is the general plan for the city of Flagstaff. We are partners with the city on putting the plan together, as well as then taking it through public adoption process, because it covers the Flagstaff metropolitan planning boundary for transportation funding. So it is that rectangle that you are very familiar with seeing, that extends beyond the city limits and creates this nice box around the communities of Belmont, Donny Park, Kachina Village, Mountainair, and then up the 180 corridor. So the FRP is a Flagstaff Regional Plan. The county will take that through our public hearing process as an amendment to the county's comprehensive plan, which is the comprehensive plan that addresses the entire county. So just to reset and just to remind us all of the nexus of these two plans. So I thought I would just go very quickly down this list, and I'll focus for now on the Flagstaff Regional Plan. Currently, the schedule is intending to take the complete draft plan forward to the 60-day public review in September and October this fall. Then the next step would be after that, then there'll be changes made, any edits that need to be made. The committee may need to meet again if there are significant public comments, and then the actual formatting of the document will occur in advance of taking it to a big meeting, a big retreat, a joint meeting with the County Board of Supervisors, the City Council, and both planning commissions. So you all will have an opportunity to meet with the City Council, the Board of Supervisors, and the City Planning Commission at a retreat in March of 2025. Commissioner Wilson, did you want me to pause now and take a question, Chair Ontiveros?
Yes, actually I was, because if Commissioner Wilson's question or comment is relevant here, I think it would be good to pause and hear what he has to say. So please go ahead, Commissioner Wilson.
When I raised my hand, I wasn't aware she was going through each line individually. I'll wait until she gets done with that to see if she answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shaw, before I forget,
Mhm.
could you please forward me a copy of the Flagstaff Regional Plan map, that box that you were referring to?
Oh, absolutely. And if you give me a second, I can actually pull it up.
Okay. And I actually was wondering if you could send it to my email.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, if you could, I'd really appreciate it. And so it looks like Mr. Haskett, your camera is back on. Could I ask that you turn that off, please, your camera? Mr. Haskett, could you please turn your camera off? Okay, it's still on. Mr. Haskett, could you please turn your camera off? We still see you.
In order to turn your camera off, you click on the camera icon, which should put a straight line through it or diagonal line through it. He's making the rest of us hungry.
I know, Mr. Haskett, we can see you eating your dinner. Could you please turn off your camera? Like find the camera icon and click on that? Yeah, I don't know. Do we have any way of, I know that we can mute. Is there any way of turning off cameras?
Madam Chair, that used to be a thing you could do, and I guess they switched
Okay.
the options.
Okay, thank you,
That's
Mr.
in
Haskett. Okay, Ms. Shaw, please continue.
Okay, thank you. So just back to the joint retreat, it would be scheduled for March of 2025. And then Flagstaff Regional Plan, the Flagstaff Planning Commission public hearing would be scheduled for May of 2025 with the City Council public hearing in June of 2025. And all of that is setting up for the City of Flagstaff ballot measure, which would be in November of 2025. And as a reminder, only City of Flagstaff residents will be able to vote on whether or not to adopt the Flagstaff Regional Plan. So that is a bit of a something to keep in mind, that even though the plan does address unincorporated portions of the region that are in the county residents will not be voting on this. So it's just for the City of Flagstaff residents. And
Okay,
then,
Ms. Shaw, can I stop you right there?
sure.
Because let's talk about the areas. Let's talk about Belmont, for example. Belmont, Kachina Village, Mountaineer. Okay, they are included in this map, but yet they have no say in whether this plan is going to affect their communities. How can that be?
Well, that's a great question. And they will have a say in the same normal process that we go through with public hearings, because this plan then would be presented to you as a commission and then the Board of Supervisors based on your recommendation at a normally noticed public hearing. And in addition, then all community members will have an opportunity to comment during the 60-day public review, as well as other opportunities before then. There'll be other additional workshops and things like that. And that's a state statute nuance between cities and towns and counties. Cities and towns are required by state statute to put a general plan to a public vote. Counties do not. We do not put our comprehensive plan to a public vote. So that's why that difference is so stark, if you will, between jurisdictions, but that is just simply following state requirements.
Okay, so people in the unincorporated areas that are going to be included in this regional plan that will affect them, they can comment, but they can't vote, and yet it will affect them.
They can comment and they will, then it will be the planning commission and then the supervisors who will ultimately decide whether or not to adopt this. So in the same process that we go through with our comprehensive plan. And, you know, that's how residents have that voice.
Okay, okay, thank you. Commissioner Best?
Well, let's have some fun. Let's say that in November 25, the ballot measure passes and the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors have public hearings. And when is the supervisors vote? It must be after the November 25th ballot measure. Is that correct?
That's the final line on this chart, if you can see. So the thought was to schedule the public hearings with the county's Planning and Zoning Commission and then the Board of Supervisors after the public vote, in case possibly it would not be approved, for instance, by voters, or if there are any kinds of changes, then we would bring that to you after it's gone through that process.
And what would happen if the county didn't agree with the ballot measure? Can we have different versions?
Potentially.
Yeah, because we have the one thing that I've sort of been following is the carbon issue, which seems to be a different version in the two jurisdictions and now. So, okay, so we could have two different versions. That answers my question.
Ideally, it will be the same version, and we are working hard to make distinction in the policies where one applies to the city versus the other applies, and make it very clear when there's a policy that does not apply to county, for instance, on carbon neutrality, because that's been a very important topic of discussion.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not trying to make your life harder, but
Right.
it is an interesting possibility that we could have different plans. So.
Hope springs eternal that it will be the same plan.
Okay, thank you.
And I appreciate Commissioner Best's comment, because if I'm not sure I understand this, because it is the Flagstaff Regional Plan, but yet it takes in areas that are outside of the city of Flagstaff. So it seems to me that in these unincorporated areas, that it would be the county plan, even if it passed in the ballot measure and was approved. I can't see how it would be the controlling document for unincorporated areas in the county. Let's just say Belmont, Kachina Village, and Mountain Air again. Let's use those three.
And so that's another great point. It would not be the quote a controlling document, because we have the county's comprehensive plan. Remember, this is adopted as an amendment to that. So the comprehensive plan still applies. If there's an area plan, which we do have area plans for all of those communities, all of those area plans still apply. And then the regional plan also applies like an area plan would apply. So for instance, when there's a development project that would be a subdivision, for instance, then planning staff is looking at the goals and policies of each document and looking at the findings that have to be made and whether or not that plan aligns with all of those documents. So that's why we're working with the city now to make sure that there is ideally not a conflict in any of these additional plans. Because it's not necessarily the controlling document, but it is an amendment to the comprehensive plan, just like the Belmont area plan is or the Kachina Village area plan is.
Right. So are you saying that the comprehensive plan is headed to the carbon neutral plan?
No,
Okay.
the carbon neutrality plan is a city of Flagstaff plan. We have not adopted anything like that. And that does not apply to any portions of the county.
Okay. Even in portions of the county that are affected by the Flagstaff regional plan, they would be exempt from that particular thing.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Commissioner Wilson?
So I just wanted to clarify here also, while the plan might still be the plan, as Ms. Shaw is suggesting, there is potential, as Commissioner Best was mentioning, that the plan would get marked up additionally after the Flagstaff ballot measure may have passed, and more things could change in it that related just to the county and would be identified as such. Is that correct, Ms. Shaw?
Well, let me make sure I understand the question, because if you look at the timing on this, then the City of Flagstaff Planning Commission and City Council would have their public hearings in May of June of 2025. And then after that, there would be no more changes. The committee may meet again to decide if there are any edits that needed to be made. But once it went to the ballot, then the plan is right now that would be the document that will be brought to the county's planning commission and board of supervisors. So between the City of Flagstaff council hearing and the November ballot, there would be no changes after the November ballot that you would see. So yeah, there would be no effort there, no opportunity to make changes, because once the city ballot measure goes through, then that's their plan. That's their adopted plan.
Okay, so the last line here says that we're going to have public hearings in January to March of 26, long after the City of Flagstaff has potentially updated their plan. There would be no sense in having public hearings that would suggest we're going to make changes to what's there if we can't do that. So both we as the County Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors have the opportunity to continue to make changes to that plan, regardless of whether Flagstaff has passed it or not. Is that correct?
Well, that's true. If it comes to you and you see something that would need to be changed to make it more aligned with the county, then that could happen during those public hearings in January, March 2026. And then we would be in the situation that we're in now, where there are slightly different plans. They're very much the same right now, but then there would, be the potential to adopt a different version of that.
Okay. And then you were talking about the different types of plans, our comprehensive, our regional, and our area plans. Is there a hierarchy to those? Does one have priority over another?
Theoretically, they do. In reality, we look at all policies equally. The comprehensive plan is the county's guiding document for long-range vision. And then because the area plans and this plan are amendments to those, then one could theoretically say that the county's comprehensive plan is the overall document, but in reality, they relate to each other. So the policies are not weighted, if you will. So the comprehensive plan policies, we review those to make sure that the area plans are in compliance. The area plans are obviously more specific plans than the comprehensive plan. So that's a great question. And theoretically, there's a hierarchy, but in reality, they work together.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Ms. Shaw.
These are great questions, by the way. So thank you for pulling out the details. And then I'm just going to go back. I'd like to go back to the orange colored lines, because that's related to the county's comprehensive plan. And we have kind of an ambitious schedule here. But we're looking at having a draft ready for the required 60-day public review in January to February of 2025. And then at the end of that time, schedule a study session with the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, a joint study session, so you can get into the details about the draft plan prior to any public hearings. And then with that, we are looking at having a public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission in April of 2025, and then a Board of Supervisor public hearing in June of 2025. And again, this, because of statutory requirements, the county's comprehensive plan does not go to a public vote. It's done through the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors public hearing process. So we just wanted to show you how how these meetings line up with the Flagstaff Regional Plan. I know this is a lot to look at, so we can, we can bring this back to you as a refresher, particularly as we get closer to these key dates. Are there any questions? I have just one more quick slide to show you.
No, I don't see any, Ms. Shaw.
Okay, thank you. And finally, just the last slide is showing you we have an advisory group formed, the Coconino County Comprehensive Plan Advisory Group. These are the members of that group, and these members were selected through the process that was approved by the Board of Supervisors. We have a meeting scheduled for July 18th, where they will have their first meeting. The first meeting and possibly the second meeting will be to get organized, and then they'll actually start to review the draft chapters. So that is my update to you right now on the regional plan and the comprehensive plan. We have a few more details on the comprehensive plan, but I wanted to pause on this slide to see if you have any questions.
Okay, I'm not seeing any, so you can go ahead in the presentation.
Okay, thank you. That was it as far as the slides go. We just wanted to give you a bit of information about outreach. If you remember, we had an open house at the end of April, and we have estimated through the public outreach up to the end of April, we've made about 1,600 contacts. That goes taking into account all of the focus groups, the county fair, the different events that we've attended. So we will have more open houses scheduled in the fall. Right now, we're working on drafting the plan to get it ready for the committee. And then I mentioned to you about the advisory group and how their first meeting is scheduled for July 18th. Those meetings will be open to the public, so we'll post the meeting link on our website. And then just to kind of give you an update on county sustainability planning, the sustainability staff is developing a survey for county departments to get an idea of what's going on countywide in terms of sustainability planning. And that information may be then compiled as a piece of information to go in our comprehensive plan. And it could actually inform a future sustainability plan framework, if you will. We did put this link on your agenda. We have about a 3.5-minute informational video that talks about the comprehensive plan. It's generic, but the idea is that it gives people, just makes people kind of excited about the comprehensive plan and asks them to join our mailing list and get involved in the process. So we are just updating that because we had that out there for the open house, and we're just updating that to make it useful now going forward without a date specific media on that. So that's available linked to your agenda if you want to watch that. And then as always, if you wanted to join the mailing list, we've got that link also on your agenda. And one final thing that's not on your agenda, well, I'll pause there again. Are there any questions about the comprehensive plan update?
We do have a 909-987-4452 number. Is that a commissioner? Because this meeting is for, the study session is for commissioners only.
Chair
So-
Tavares, I can
Yes.
address that. That's Eric Fort. He's an applicant for one of the RV as a permanent resident CUPs.
Okay.
He wanted the opportunity to speak, but I will leave that to your discretion.
No, this is strictly, the study session is strictly for the commissioners. However, there will be on the agenda, the final item on the planning and zoning agenda is call to public for items not on the agenda. And that would be the appropriate place for him to talk to the commission. So,
Madam Chair, likewise, this item will be on his request should be on the public hearing agenda next month, so he'll be able to speak on the public hearing agenda when his item comes up next month.
right, okay, okay. Yes, he could, or he could speak tonight on the, for items not on the agenda, if he would like.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go ahead, Ms. Shaw, if you could continue.
Right, and so that's the update for the comprehensive plan, and we did just want to mention it's not on your agenda, but back to that old Route 66 Brownfields grant, I am happy to announce that grant was awarded to NACOG on behalf of the coalition. So it is $1.5 million. I believe the funding will be available in October, and we will continue to promote that through your agenda update, because there'll be funding available then for property owners throughout the county who would wish to have free funding for brownfields assessment. So that's pretty exciting news.
Okay, and Commissioner Wilson, I see your hand raised.
Ms. Shaw, I'm curious to know the brownfield grants. Does our commission have any say in how those are administered, or any input whatsoever in that process?
That's really it's really an informational item for you all. This grant is an EPA grant, and the funding is available to property owners to apply for directly to NACOG for those funds. So no, you don't have any authority over how they're administered.
Okay, I'm just questioning whether there's a lot of value in regular updates on the status of it if we don't have any bearing on it. And so, thank you.
And if I may just address that, I know that at least one property owner who was on a study session heard that update and then did contact NACOG and did apply for and was granted an assessment. So it's informational to any public who is listening in to these study session. It's just one of many avenues that we are trying to use to get the word out about the available funding.
Okay, Commissioner Best?
That was my question. Who do you contact? So just call NACOG and they'll know how to direct you.
Or they can contact me. Yeah, we've got NACOG will have an application on their website.
Okay.
If it's something that you all would rather not have an update for every month, we can certainly not include it.
I'm interested in it personally.
Yeah, I do understand Commissioner Wilson's question, but I'm all about getting the information out to the public in these open hearings. So I personally have no problem with the quick little update. It doesn't take more than a minute, two. So
Mhm.
I'm in favor, because I want to get the community at large as much information as we possibly can. That's just my 2 cents. So with that, I'm not seeing, I think Commissioner Best's hand's raised, but he forgot to take it down.
Yeah, it's a personal problem, I think.
It's okay. I just didn't want to miss you. Okay, Mr. McNeely, time is getting short, so would you please move to the Board of Supervisors update?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Wanted to let you know that on June 11th, the board approved the trail abandonment and final plat amendment in Mormon Lake that you all had recommended for approval. Last night on June 25th, the board heard zone change 2304. That was the 3Gs homestead zone change west of Williams, just north of I-40. And they approved that zone change as recommended by you all last night. On August 20th, the board will hear an appeal of CUP 2409. That is the campground conditional use permit request that was denied by the commission last month. That denial has been appealed to the board, so the board is scheduled to hear that on August 20th. Any questions on items going to the board?
Mr. McNeely, I'm not seeing any, so let's go ahead and jump to commission and staff roundtable.
Okay, so Madam Chair, I did put one thing on here for roundtable from staff, is that we would like to offer in mid-July. That was what we discussed last month as being ideal for most commissioners. And we would propose that July 17th could be a date that any commissioners that would like to visit a couple of our commercial campgrounds in the county, we could schedule that field visit. Probably take off from our department some point by mid-morning and return by early afternoon. If there are any takers or any comments on July 17th as being a good date for commissioners to visit a couple of the commercial campgrounds that you all have approved.
Commissioner Ruggles, go ahead.
Thank you. You can put my name on that list, and the 17th is a very good date as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you. I just looked at my calendar and I would like to go, but the 17th is not a good date for me. But that said, if it's good for everybody else, just move ahead with it.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. I would, being that we haven't heard from any of the other commissioners, I would ask if any other commissioners have any comment on 17th. We could toss out the 19th as well, which would be a Friday.
Now, the 19th would work for me, but again, this isn't all about me. So, okay,
Well,
Commissioner
hate to interrupt.
Why don't we
Vice Chair
send out a survey, folks? Wouldn't that make sense to send out a survey?
Yep, and can do. I'll send out a survey and see which of those dates work better for more people.
Okay, I think that would work good. Okay, so is there anything else at, let's see. So I've got Commissioner Wilson, please go ahead.
As part of just a general discussion amongst ourselves, the consent agenda item processing that we've adopted for RVs on for permanent residents, I think has worked really well for us. And I would like to suggest that there's a possibility the first two agenda items in tonight's meeting might also lend itself well to a consent agenda item treatment. And I'm just going to leave that there for everybody to consider.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Wilson. This is Chair Ontiveros. While we're talking amongst ourselves, I have no problem if everybody understands exactly what those are. So I could even query the commission at that time. Commissioner Best? Okay.
Thank you. Since we've got 1 minute of roundtable here, I'm a little uncomfortable about fire, and I probably should have talked to Mr. McNeely about this beforehand. Both the Camp Colton cases and the Grand Canyon Echo Retreat cases left me feeling uncomfortable. The Camp Colton case, the state fire marshal has jurisdiction and told them not to fight fires, just to call the fire department and run for it. Grand Canyon Echo Retreat, turns out the guy who is supposed to show up there as a volunteer has a different job. I don't quite know where to go with this. If anybody else is interested, chime in, but maybe it's something we could have staff take a look at in some way. I mean, fire to me is absolutely critically important, especially in these two particular places. I mean, one is at the bottom of a mountain, of a roar up the mountain. The other is Camp Colton, for Pete's sakes, and they have a fire pit. And I asked what they had to put the fire out, and they said a bucket. Interesting. So I'll just lay that out there. I don't know if staff or if other staff or commissioners want to chime in or not. Honestly, I haven't really thought what I'm asking for, but maybe a review of, we spent so much time with the fire chiefs at the retreat, and then to come away feeling as I do, I'm a little confused exactly where to put it. I don't know what our options are, so I'll just express that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Best. That might be, I mean, perhaps I could just suggest, I understand what you're saying, maybe kind of codify your thoughts there, you know what I mean? And perhaps see if there's a question that you could verbalize, if you will, and maybe bring it up at the next roundtable. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here.
Thanks.
I just-
And I think, I should have had a conversation with Mr. McNeely before this, but if anybody else is interested, just send me an email or something, and I'll talk to Jess before the next meeting.
Okay. All righty. Is there anything else? We've only got a minute left, so I'm not seeing any hands raised. I don't think we're going to get a break tonight, you guys, between the study session and the hearing, because it's going to start in less than a minute. So let's just push through. Mr. McNeely, do you see Commissioner Williams on with us? I do not, but I do see everyone here except her.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm seeing the same as you. I do not see Commissioner Williams, but we do have 7 commissioners, so we do have a quorum.
Exactly. Okay. All right. It is 5:30 p.m. and this is Chair Aunt Taveras, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to begin by reading the meeting rules and procedures. So welcome to the June 26, 2024 meeting of the Coconino County Planning and Zoning Commission. Cases will be heard in the order they appear on the agenda. Following the staff presentation, the applicant and/or the applicant's representative may address the commission. As an applicant, if you agree with the staff report and have no additional information, please feel free to keep your comments brief. Any relevant comments are welcome. Following the applicant's presentation, I will make a call to the public. If you wish to address this case, please state your name and address. We ask that your comments be limited to 3 minutes or less. Comments must be relevant to the case. Please address all comments to the commission. No matter how strongly you may feel about the case, all comments must be polite and courteous. After all interested public have spoken, the public comment portion will be closed. Discussion will then take place amongst commissioners. Decisions of this commission regarding any zone change or preliminary subdivision plat approval are referred to the Board of Supervisors as a recommendation. All other case decisions are binding unless appealed to the Board of Supervisors. If you disagree with the commission's decision, you have 15 days to appeal. Please contact staff at the Community Development Office for appeal procedures. Due to the virtual nature of this meeting, I will be doing a roll call vote of the commissioners to ensure accuracy for the record. Please mute your speakers and turn off your camera. And also, please do not use the comment function for discussions. It is simply for communicating with staff if you are having some kind of a technical issue. With that, thank you for joining us this evening and actively participating in our county planning. The first item on the agenda this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please stand? And Mr. McNeely, would you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. The second item on the agenda is approval of the May 29th, 2024 minutes. Commissioner Wilson, I see your hand raised.
Madam Chair, on page 8 of the minutes as presented in our information package, there is a vote tally that shows who voted but not how. And it appears to me that it should be that the following commissioners voted aye or nay as to accurately reflect what happened.
Yes, and I personally agree with that. So I think that change should be made. Are there any other changes, corrections, or modifications? Okay, seeing none, I will accept a motion and a second for approval of the minutes with the correction stated by Commissioner Wilson.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the May 29th meeting with the correction as noted.
Okay, so I'm going to need a second.
This is Rose, Commissioner Tohi. I'll second. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Wilson to approve the minutes of May 29th, 2024 with the correction as stated. A second by Commissioner Tohi. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ruggles,
Aye.
Commissioner Tohi,
Aye.
Vice Chair Burton,
Abstain.
Commissioner Walsh,
Abstain.
Commissioner Best.
Aye.
This is Chair Ontiveros. I also vote aye. And I guess the motion.
That puts you at 5.
Passes. Yeah, but I do remember that before, this isn't an action item, and so my memory serves me that we are allowed to do this per legal counsel that we've had before. And I don't see our legal counsel's hand being raised, so I'm going to say that the motion passes. The first 3 items on our public hearings tonight, case number CUP 22-011 to 015 and 018. And then the second case number CUP 22-016, 017 and 019, and 021 to 034. These are all, both of these cases are requests for an extension, a 2-year extension of the conditional use permit to allow the applicant to get building permits. The third case on the agenda this evening is CUP 24012, which is a request for a conditional use permit for a second 8x40 metal storage container. All 3 of these cases are coming, they're fairly simple requests and have come before the commission before. All 3 of these cases also come with staff a recommendation of approval. So the first thing I'm going to ask, if there are any commissioners who want to have these cases, those 3 that I just mentioned, presented tonight. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, Commissioner Wilson, which one would you like?
Madam Chair, I believe items number 1 and 2 can be consent agenda. I personally would like to have some discussion on item 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's what I was looking for. Okay, so is there any of the other commissioners that have any that want to see items 1 and 2 presented? Please raise your hand. Okay, I'm going to ask if there is anyone in the public this evening that wishes to address these 2 cases. Okay, seeing none, we are going to go ahead and do these as consent agenda items. So I will accept a motion in a second, please.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the 2-year extension for CUP 22-011 to 15 and 18, as well as CUP 22-016, 017, and 019, 021 to 034.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Vice Chair Burton and a second by Commissioner Wilson to approve the aforementioned cases. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ruggles,
Aye.
Commissioner Towhee,
Aye.
Vice Chair Burton,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh,
Aye.
Commissioner Best.
Aye.
This is Chair Ontiveros, and that motion passes unanimously. The third item on the agenda this evening is case number CUP 24012, a request for a conditional use permit for a second 8x40 metal storage container. Would staff please present?
Chair Ontiveros, this is Commissioner Williams, and I'm here, and I also say aye in that
Oh,
first one. I just
thank
got
you.
on. I was having some difficulty, so I am here.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Slaughter, if you would please have the minutes correct that we do have Commissioner Williams, and she did vote aye on that, on the previous motion. Okay, case number 3, presentation, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is CUP-24-12. This is a request for another metal storage container on a property that you recently viewed in March. Property owner for this case is Christopher and Erica Wharton. They live at 4531 East Simmons Lane in Valley. The zoning is AR1 and the property is 1.01 acres. This is in Patrice Horseman's district. And the request is for a permanent 8x40 metal storage container. Again, reminding the commission that you did approve a metal storage container already for this property in March. So this would be 2 total. Here's a vicinity map of the property. You can see that this is just north of the 180 in Valley. And here's an aerial photo of the subject property. You can see it's just off the turnoff to Kaibab Road from Highway 180. The zoning ordinance does allow one 8x20 container by right, unless a CUP is approved to allow a larger container or more than one container. In this case, the applicant is requesting both of those things, 2 8x40 metal storage containers. Trees do partially block the view of the previously approved container, and it was painted tan. You'll see in another photo that this container is also screened. The applicant put up some fencing. It is well screened from Highway 180, and it will also be painted tan. Here's the site plan. You can see that the original container is somewhat near the center of the property, and the proposed container is 25 feet from the west property line. Here's the existing container's color. If approved, the applicant would paint the second container this color as well. And here's the proposed container. You can see that right now it is green, and the applicant wanted to paint it tan to match everything else. And here's the view of the property. You can see that a fence has been erected, and it's pretty difficult to see the container from the road here. The applicant did have a citizen participation meeting with property owners within 300 feet of the subject property on May 3rd, 2024. None of the neighbors attended, and no one received comments, either the applicant or staff. Here are the findings of fact for a conditional use permit. I am more than happy to come back to this slide for reference as needed. And with that, staff recommends approval of CUP-24-12 with the recommended conditions. Are there any questions from the commission?
Okay, this is Chair Ontiveros. Yes, Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Bingham, it appears the applicant is kind of doing this out of order. They're placing the containers and then asking permission. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner Wilson, they did obtain the new container prior to getting approval for it. Therefore, if they don't get approval tonight, they would be asked to remove that container.
Okay, and I think we briefly touched on it earlier, but are there any performance requirements other than being painted? Like they're prohibited from having power to the container, is that correct? Are there any other conditions associated with that?
Sure. So the conditions in the zoning ordinance or the performance standards, those can all be exceeded by the commission. I might pull up that section of the zoning ordinance for reference since this has come up more than once tonight, just so everyone is familiar with it.
Thank you.
All right. I am sharing my screen now.
We see it.
That's it.
Perfect. This is section 3.10, metal storage container boxes. And you can see that these are separated out in a couple of different circumstances. First, we cover temporary uses and the associated performance standards. You can see these are all addressed by zone. And down here, you can see permanent uses and GAR, RR, RS, etc. zones. So these are the performance standards that staff can approve if someone were to apply for an administrative permit. No signage, no utilities, no plumbing, no mechanical. Addition of electricity does require an electric permit. And you can get electric for lights and outlets. That appears to be all that's allowed by the zoning ordinance. So anything beyond that would require a hearing like we're at today. We do require that the containers are painted, as we've discussed. They do need to meet performance standards, including setbacks, building separation, and structure height. Use shall be limited to personal effects for the property owner or tenant. So you can't use this metal storage container commercially. Unit cannot be lived in or lived in by animals as well. You can't store things on top. But then you see B here, any deviations from these standards may be approved by the issuance of a conditional use permit. So anything could be approved at the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Everything listed here is a standard that staff could approve administratively.
So those changes could occur after we have approved this, is that correct?
That's a great question, Commissioner Wilson. Mr. McNeely can correct me if I'm wrong. However, my understanding is that if they get a conditional use permit for this container, any changes to it would require a modification to their conditional use permit, just like any other conditional use permit that you would approve.
And in this case, they've not requested any additional changes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Chair Ontiveros. I'm not seeing any other hands raised. So I'm going to ask if the applicant or the applicant's representative would like to address the commission. If so, please state your name and address for the record. And I would like to ask if you have received the staff report and if you understand the recommended conditions of approval. Okay, you know what? Maybe I asked that question in the wrong way. Like I said, if you would like to. I do see that the applicant, Christopher Wharton, is with us this evening, and he does not have to address the commission. It doesn't look like he's going to address the commission. And so in that case, I'm going to ask if there is anyone in the public. Well, let me ask this. Are there any commissioners who wish to ask the applicant any questions this evening? Okay. Commissioner Wilson, please go ahead. And this question is for the applicant. Go ahead, Commissioner Wilson.
Yes, ma'am. The question is, it was my understanding that we require the applicant to acknowledge receipt of the conditions and that they understand them so that we can then vote adequately. So I would like to ask Mr. Wharton if that is the case. Has he received those conditions and does he understand and agree with them?
Okay. Mr. Wharton, if you could unmute and answer the question of whether you have received the staff report and understand the recommended conditions. The applicant, I do not believe, I would like to ask Mr. McNeely to correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I do not believe that the applicant is required to be present at these hearings. Am I correct?
Madam Chair, yeah, it's absolutely correct. The applicant's not required to be present or to speak.
Yes. Okay. So with that, the applicant is not responding. So I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the public that wishes to address the commission on this case this evening. Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public and open it at commission discussion. Commissioner Wilson, would you please begin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if there is a limit to how many of these containers can be, in a certain space. And I have some concerns since this is exceeding by a significant amount the normally, rights to approved containers. So I have some concerns, but I'm anxious to hear what my fellow commissioners have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ruggles.
Well, in response to what Commissioner Wilson has said, in the past, typically the lots have been larger than 1 acre. We have had instances where similar questions have come up with larger lots, and when there has been vegetation such as juniper, pinyon, ponderosa pines, and a willingness of the applicant to paint and to, in some cases, use 2 of them and create a cabana with a roof over the 2 and the open space in between. Yes, we've approved that. I think the questions here are valid. However, this particular lot and the location, I think, my opinion, that with the fencing and the, I believe the junipers that are on the property, it's fairly well screened from both Highway 89 and the road that is used for access. So I'm going to throw that out for others to consider before we get back to this and decide on what we want to do. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. Commissioner Towhee.
Good evening, everybody. I don't have a problem with this, but I will also hear what others will have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Burton.
Excuse me, I don't have a problem with this. Commissioner Wilson did bring up the fact that, they were asking for forgiveness, basically, which if they had never gone through this process before, totally fine with that, honestly. But this is not the first rodeo, and I do feel this should have come to us first. So are we able to do some kind of condition that says, should a third be placed on this property, it would be an automatic no on a conditional use permit and required to be removed? I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, I'm fine with whatever we're legally allowed to do and whatever the commission, that my fellow commissioners want to do. I'm just pondering that idea.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Burton, and I can respond on my thoughts on that when it's my turn to speak. Commissioner Walsh?
I agree with this discussion. I'm curious why the container was placed before an application was made. It would have been nice to hear from the owner, but I actually don't have a problem with the second container on this property in this location. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Walsh. Commissioner Best?
Thank you. Could I ask staff, I should ask this during staff report, but what is the view from Highway 180? Is this going to be visible?
Thank you, Commissioner Best. My understanding based on the photo is that the top of it may be visible, but what's mostly visible is the fence. I want to be clear that I personally have not been to the site since this fence has been erected. Our code enforcement officers posted this for us while they were out there for a separate issue. So my understanding is what can be seen from Highway 180 is just the top of it.
Okay, thank you. And we didn't get any complaints. Basically, there's only one neighbor looking at the parcel viewer. I'm a little uncomfortable with it, but without complaints and with a fairly restricted view from Highway 180, I think I can make the findings. Obviously, I'm assuming that everything else on the property has been permitted. Is that correct?
Commissioner Best, I know that this applicant has been working to get everything on their property permitted for a long time. I have not heard of any recent issues with this property.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Best. Commissioner Williams?
I can make the findings for the CUP, and I don't have a problem with it, especially given the screening and yeah, I mean, in the perfect world, people get the permit and then the container, but sometimes the container shows up and you got to put it somewhere. You can't just dilly-dally and store it while you're getting everything together. So, I don't have a problem with 2 containers there, and I can make the findings.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Williams. This is Chair Ontiveros, and I would, Commissioner Wilson, I heard your comments. I guess I'm going to summarize it by saying maybe you feel that 2 is a bit excessive. I do appreciate the explanation that Commissioner Ruggles provided, and I do agree with all of the comments that he gave. My position is that I would rather see a storage container on a piece of property rather than piles of storage that is outside without being screened. So I support this request. It's going to be painted. I can make the findings to approve it. Now, I know that there has been discussion on he put it there first, basically sinned and is asking for forgiveness. So I do understand that. And I do just want to make clear that this was not a complaint-driven case. When Ms. Bingham said that the code enforcement officer took the picture, it's because the code enforcement officer was in the area on a completely unrelated case. So I just want to be clear that this case did not come to us as a result of a complaint. I get what everybody is saying. I think personally what I am comfortable with is just letting the applicants know, you know, third time you come before us and you haven't gone about it the right way. You know, it doesn't really look good. You're doing the right thing coming before the commission and getting it approved, and we appreciate that. I guess what I would just like to say is I would just like to offer the applicant a suggestion and say, should you put up another one, would you please go about it the right way, so that the other commissioners are not having, you know, so much angst with it, because I do understand their position. So I would just like to ask everybody to do what is required. I can make the findings. That's where I'm at. I'm going to run back through the list of commissioners, and then we'll move to a motion in a second. Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your summary of the comments. I think that accurately reflects it. I do think on a lot this size, 2 of these containers would certainly be as many as I would want to see there, especially if I lived nearby and had to see it all the time. On the other hand, seeing, you know, random things just strewn about a yard isn't helpful either. From the street view in Google right now, it does appear there are other items throughout the yard. So I have some concerns, and I hope that if we approve the CUP, it will help address some of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Ruggles.
Thank you. In looking at this, I got to consider the fact that, yes, I come down on the side of forgiveness here, definitely. The important part of that is that the applicant has come back to community development and us on the commission with a request for CUP for the second storage container. I'd much rather see that than no storage container. And as you have said, just stuff piled up all over the property. And the second thing is that he's actually asked for it. The storage container is there. It may be after the fact. The important part is we're here to talk about the permit for that second one. And that is the part about forgiveness. I can definitely make the findings. And by the way, I have to correct myself. It would be difficult to see the second container from Highway 89. I believe that's what I said. It's Highway 180. I apologize for that. However, that being said, I can make the findings for this. You've heard what I had to say about it. I've listened to what other commissioners have said, and that has helped make the decision. So I am definitely in favor of that. But I will say that I understand Commissioner Wilson's difficulty with having more than 2 on a 1 acre lot. So that should be in the record, and that does it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. Commissioner Towhee.
I approve, and I can make the findings as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Burton.
I can make the findings, and I definitely agree. I'd rather see a storage container than stuff strewn around the property.
Okay, Commissioner Walsh.
I concur with Commissioner Ruggles and Williams. I can make the findings.
Okay, Commissioner Best.
I can make the findings.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams.
I can make the findings.
Thank you. And this is Chair Ontiveros. And I can also make the findings. And I do just want to add one last thing, that there has been concern expressed by numerous commissioners here this evening that 3 on a 1 acre lot is going to be one too many. So if we do end up with this case back in front of us, based on what I'm hearing, it's likely that a third would not be approved. So I just want to put that out there to the applicant as well, to really follow, if you do want a third one, to really follow carefully the policies and procedures and put them in order, because a third one may not be, and it would be easier just to do it the right way to begin with. So I'm going to leave it there. I will accept a motion in a second, please, for approval of CUP 24016. I'm sorry, that was the wrong case number. CUP 24012.
Okay, I'll go for it. I move to approve case number CUP-24-012 with conditions as written by staff.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Ruggles, a second by Commissioner Wilson for approval of CUP 24012. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ruggles,
Aye.
Commissioner Tohi,
Sorry, fussing with my microphone here.
it's okay.
Aye.
Okay, Vice Chair Burton,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh,
Aye.
Commissioner Best,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
This is Chair Antiveros. I also vote aye. The motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is CUP 24016.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is Zach Schwartz with planning staff, and this case is CUP 24016, the Deer Farm Wireless Tower conditional use permit. Property owner for the subject property, they are Randy and Patricia George, and the applicant is Tom Wilkerson. Property is located at 6761 East Deer Farm Road in the Parks area. And the parcel size is 2.1 acres. Subject property is located in the heavy commercial zone. And this is a request for a conditional use permit for a 114-foot wireless tower. Here's a vicinity map. So we're in the Parks area. This is the Deer Farm exit, and just west of that, past Forest Service, is the Deer Farm Petting Zoo. And just west of that on a separate property is the subject property, also in the heavy commercial zone. To the west of the subject property is the AR4 zone, vacant property. To the north is Forest Service, and to the south is right-of-way for I-40. Here's an aerial photo. So this is the Deer Farm property, and this is the subject property. Closer to the north of the property is a caretaker's residence for the Deer Farm. And back at the northern part of the property is an existing 66-foot 3-inch monopole that's close to the border here on the north with the Forest Service. This is a photo from Deer Farm Road of the existing monopole on the property. And this is a closer up photo from on the property on the northern section. For the proposed development, the applicant is requesting a 114-foot tall wireless communications tower. They're calling this project a drop and swap. So they would get rid of the existing 66-foot 3-inch tower and replace it with this one. It's actually 110 feet tall with a 4-foot lightning rod appurtenance at the top. And the applicant has designed it in what's called a monopine. So it's made to appear like as if it were a pine tree to match the surrounding ponderosa pine on the subject property. And I'd actually like to go back to the aerial photo. So I want the commission to take note of this is the tower, and there's a lot of mature ponderosa pines to the southeast and west of it. The proposed development also is for expansion of the equipment area around the tower. So right now it's 280 square feet. The applicant is looking to expand that to 865 square feet to accommodate additional ground equipment. And the entire lease area would be fenced by a 6-foot chain link fence with 1 foot of barbed wire on top. I wanted to note that this tower is designed for co-location. So you'll see in a future slide that the applicant's elevation plan shows Verizon and AT&T antennas, and it's also built for future locations above and beyond that. This is a site plan, so it shows what we've gone through before. Here's the caretaker's residence, and here's the existing lease area. Over here is where the applicant would look to expand that lease area in the whiter color. And these are the elevation plans. So the applicant on this plan juxtaposed, this is the existing tower here. This is the proposed, it's the 110-foot tall with the 4-foot lightning rod on top, and it's got pretty thick branches throughout. Along with the submittal, the applicant submitted what we call photo simulations. So up here and this smaller map at the top right of the screen that you can see, there will be 3 different views of the existing and the proposed tower. So we're looking right now at view 1, which is pretty much dead south, due south of the existing tower that's located about here. And so you can see it here in the photograph. And this is the photo simulation. So it is taller than the surrounding ponderosa pine, not by a whole lot. So it does still blend in somewhat. This is view 2, so a little bit further west on Deer Farm Road. This is the existing, and this is the proposed. Then finally view 3, which is quite a while west of the subject property. You can't see the existing tower at all, and you would see it as shown here, the proposed. As far as zoning ordinance requirements for a tower, the normal requirement is a setback of 105% of the tower so that it doesn't fall onto another property. And the zoning ordinance does allow for a licensed engineer to write a stamped letter that shows that the tower would collapse upon itself or onto the subject property. So in this case, the tower was designed in that way where it would collapse upon itself and not fall onto surrounding properties. So that zoning ordinance requirement is met. There's no lighting plan that was submitted for this, but any lighting near the equipment building would be required to be fully shielded, and a lighting permit would be required. The tower is also under 200 feet in height, so it would not be required to have lighting on the top of it that the FAA requires for flight safety. And as far as landscaping, the applicant did not submit a landscape plan, but staff recommends a waiver to allow for the existing mature ponderosa pine to be retained in lieu of a landscape plan. The zoning ordinance has a list of preferred and disfavored sites in the zoning ordinance to help you all with your decision tonight. And so this tower ranked in 3 places on the preferred list, and the preferred list, they are ranked from most preferred as number 1 and least preferred as number 10. So this would meet criteria 3 because it's a concealed or camouflaged, in this case, facility. It would meet number 4 on the preferred list because it's a new site in a previously disturbed area. And it would meet number 6 because it is a new facility that is between 100 and 175 feet in a commercial zone. It does rank on the disfavored list because it is a site that is adjacent to a residential zone to the west, that AR4 zone. In addition to zoning ordinance requirements, the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996 requires local jurisdictions to approve towers if the gap in coverage is identified and the request is the least intrusive means of closing that gap. So I have the coverage map existing and how it would result if the tower that's requested would be installed on the next slide. But I can tell you that there is a gap shown and that the proposed tower does cover some gap area. So on top is the current coverage map, and on the bottom is the enhanced coverage, is what they're calling it. This would be the result of the new tower. So the colors are, the green color represents excellent coverage. The blue or purplish color represents fair coverage, and the reddish or pinkish color represents poor coverage. And then areas that are sort of blank, those represent complete gaps in coverage. So this is the current coverage map. This is where the tower exists, and you can see nearby there's a lot of blank area, and there's also a lot of fair coverage. There's some poor coverage as well. This map is showing green from the resulting tower as covering those gaps. As far as comprehensive plan analysis, the subject property is just outside of the parks area plan actually, so only the comprehensive plan applies in this situation. In the staff report, I had 3 different relevant goals and policies that are related to this request, so I'll just read those out. The first is Community Service Policy 7, which states that the county shall facilitate efforts to expand access and capacity of broadband and wireless telecommunication systems. The second is Public Safety Policy 7, that states the county encourages enhanced wireless infrastructure that supports public safety purposes. And the third is Community Character Policy 6, which states that public and semi-public uses shall be approved at locations convenient to the population being served, provided that such locations are compatible and complementary with surrounding neighborhoods. So those were the 3 comprehensive plan policies that apply in this case, and they support this case. As far as citizen participation, the applicant notified properties owners within a half mile, and I want to state for the record that the staff report erroneously said 300 feet. It's a half mile out that gets 41 property owners, and 2 participated in the meeting. They had questions about the number of potential antennas, radio frequencies and radiation emitted, and whether carriers would use 5G antennas. Staff also received a letter on Saturday, just last Saturday, by a concerned neighbor who referenced concerns about radio frequencies, and they also noted their preference of a monopole over a monopine. So that would be just one single pole without the branches. And I do want to iterate to the commission that you cannot use emissions from the tower to make or not make the required findings of fact because it's federal jurisdiction, the jurisdiction of the FCC. I have on the screen for you the 4 findings of fact that must be made by the commission in order to approve the case. And I've gone over those in the staff report. I'm happy to revisit this slide or pull them up from my staff report if there are any questions about that, but staff is able to make all 4 findings of fact and recommends approval of case CUP 24016 with the recommended conditions. I'm happy to take any questions from the commission at this time.
Commissioner Wilson, please go ahead.
Mr. Schwartz, I wonder if you could go back to the coverage map, the current coverage area. So when we're looking at this map, it looks to me as if updating this pole will provide good coverage all the way out to Williams, which on the map on the top here appears to be in a dead zone right now, which is difficult to believe that Williams would be without cell coverage. Does this map reflect the coverage of all the poles in the area? Is it, I know we've gotten into this before and I hate to open this box again, but it doesn't, there seems to be some logic missing here.
Right, Madam Chair, Commissioner Wilson. So one thing I'll note is that they have the location of Williams wrong. Williams has to be here because this is Highway 64. So I think that they're not as familiar with the area, but they're using this data that they have. So I think that what they're showing for coverage in areas where there are gaps is correct. I probably should have asked them to fix this issue with where Williams is, but otherwise, I think they've identified a gap in coverage that is covered by the proposal.
Okay, and then I looked at the letter from the professional engineer on the tower collapse specifications. And in that letter, they state the design can consider localized buckling. The tower shaft can be designed to buckle in the upper portion. The tower shaft can be designed to fall to grade within a 50-foot maximum, but it doesn't say it will be. Does any of your conditions require them not to can, but actually do design in accordance or in order to accomplish those desired results?
So my read of that letter, and you might have better expertise than I, but it looked like it was almost certainly going to fall on the subject property. There might be, those might be some good questions to ask the applicant. I asked them to have their engineer here at the hearing tonight. And if the commission is uncomfortable with that, then we could write additional conditions. I could probably propose something where they would have clearer language from a licensed engineer that would meet the standard in a way that makes the commission comfortable.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, are there any other commissioners with questions this evening for staff? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to ask if the applicant or the applicant's representative would address the commission. Please state your name and address for the record, and I will ask if you have received the staff report and understand the conditions, the recommended conditions. And also, if you would please address Commissioner Wilson's question.
Hi, yes, my name is Tom Wilkerson and I'm the applicant. I have received the staff report and we agree with the findings on it. My engineer was unfortunately unable to make it to the meeting tonight. So as far as the letter goes, it is something that I can certainly pose to them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. This is Chair Ontiveros. It's very, I'm thinking when we get to commission discussion that it's going to be very likely that the commissioners are going to want it shall collapse, not can. And I know that Mr. Schwartz is working on some verbiage to address that. Would you have any problem with that condition being added?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Wilkerson? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open it to the public and ask if there is anyone in the public that wishes to address the commission on this case this evening. Okay, I see two individuals. Nicole McGinnis, we're going to start with you. Please state your name and address for the record, and there will be 3 minutes for each speaker. And Mr. McNeely, would you please time and give a 1-minute warning? Or 1 minute notice, I should say. Okay, Ms. McGinnis, please go ahead.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. So first of all, my name is Nicole McGinnis. I live in the Deer Park subdivision at 1133 North Whitney Road in Williams. And I'm about 1,300 to 1,400 feet. My home is pretty much the center of my home, the bedrooms where those are located, from where the cell tower would be located according to Google Maps. So I bought my home in 2009, so I've been here for 15 years now, going on 15 years. Per Mr. Wilson's comment about Williams sort of in the map, Williams is most definitively not a dead zone. We're not a dead zone here. I'm just west of the deer farm, again, about 1,300 feet. I work from home. I work for 3 universities. So my work is primarily, about 90% of it is online. So I am constantly using data, constantly using the internet. So please believe me when I say connectivity is not an issue here. I'm also in Williams frequently. That's where I shop. I'm sorry if I'm talking quickly. I know I only have 3 minutes. I have constant connectivity between here and Williams, Ash Fork. It goes a little dead when I go to Prescott, but that's obviously not pertinent here. So I have several just potential concerns about this, and many of these have to do with sort of a lack of information. I know that the FCC regulations, that's the purview of the federal government, but to not have any information on whether or not this proposed tower will be compliant with those FCC limits is obviously of a concern. We have many children in this neighborhood. I raised my kids here. And I live here. So to not know that, and to, if that is available, I'd love to know where to find that. I would also love to know where to find, if it's available, or to see some sort of environmental impact report, the area right where that tower will be. And again, I'm a huge nature watcher and bird fan. We have several pairs of paired birds of prey, eagles and hawks, right in those trees, right around that site. I would say within maybe 100 yards or maybe 150 yards. We have migrating birds. So I would just love to see some sort of environmental impact report rather than just think, no, this is going to be fine.
You're well under a minute.
Thank you so much. Okay, so aesthetic issues, increased radiation. I know that studies are conflicting on this on both sides, but I'd love to see some sort of impact report. Property devaluation issues are huge. Obviously, as a homeowner, I'd like to know the type of backup power that will be used. Usually, apparently, this is lead acid batteries, diesel tanks, or gas. If this applies here. So also, as far as the least intrusive means, there's so much land between where we are, which is Williams, and Parks Belmont. So I'm wondering why here, if we're trying to serve Parks with this. So thank you all so much. And yep, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McGinnis. The second speaker is Terra Rouge LLC. Again, please state your name and address for the record. And Mr. McNeely, please give a 1-minute notice.
Yep.
Terra Rouge, I think you're muted. Again, to Terra Rouge LLC, I see your hand raised, but we cannot hear you. So please unmute. There you go. No? Okay, Terra Rouge, you are still muted. We cannot hear you. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one. It is a 909-987-4452 number. Please state your name and address for the record and go ahead. 3 minutes. And we are not hearing you either.
Their icon indicates that they don't even have a microphone available to them.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that that's what it meant. So how do we address that?
Madam Chair, if I could, this is Senior Planner Zach Schwartz. I know that people on their phones, I believe they can press *6 to unmute themselves. It looks like the 909 number did.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I'm addressing the current issue, not what I came in for earlier. I just want to say I wholeheartly support the construction of the commercial tower in the area, in the Deer Park area. I was through there just yesterday or the day before, and it is a hole in coverage. I was trying to use my phone through that area, and it was a dead zone, and it's desperately needed, just something that I sort of stumbled across here. And I don't think that that should even necessarily be required to be put up as one of the funky monopines or like that anyway. They look fake anyway. If we want cell towers and we want cell service around, we need to expect to have the actual towers and antennas that support them. Get used to it, people.
Could I please
So
ask that you
that's my
state?
comments on the construction.
Okay,
I support it, and it doesn't need to be camouflaged. It's needed.
Okay, I need you, could you please state your name and address for the record, please, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry if you didn't catch that earlier. Eric Fort, and the address is 690 East Rutgers in Williams.
Got it. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to go back to and see if we can get Terra Rouge. Terra Rouge, I see your hand raised, but we cannot hear you. So if you could please unmute. Mr. Schwartz, do you know how to, can we unmute someone? We can mute people. Can we unmute them?
Madam Chair, it's another one of those features where it used to be staff could turn off video, that sort of thing. I can't unmute somebody. I guess what I would recommend for the Terra Rouge LLC is that there is a call-in number, and let me pull that up.
Okay.
It looks like, Terra Rouge, if you're listening, please call 1-872-242-8971.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a brief comment. I had problems with the
I will
Microsoft
just
Teams
say that,
meeting earlier.
okay, so can I have the 909-987-4452 number, please mute? Okay, and I will just say that that you already did have it. Okay, never mind, we're good.
I'm wondering actually if Mr. McNeely has the agenda open, because they might have to click some of the other numbers as well. Or I can pull it up, but I could scroll and show that on the screen for them to better call into the meeting. There you go. Thank you.
I do see now that it is David and Barbara Horton, and I do know that they are the ones that did submit a letter to the commission stating their opposition. If for whatever reason we're unable to connect with them, we can let their written statement stand.
Madam Chair, if we are unable to connect with them, perhaps we could at least display their letter so that we can give as best consideration as possible. I have reviewed it, but it might be a good idea for the record.
Okay, you know, why don't we do that? Because it doesn't appear that we're going to be able to make connection. And so I'm just going to say, David and Barbara Horton, if you can hear me, we have put your letter that you submitted. It is actually being displayed for public view on our screen right now. The commissioners have read this letter, so we do know that you are opposed and why. And that will be your comments in your opposition letter will be taken into consideration. So I think we're probably going to have to leave it there right now. So I'm going to go ahead and close it to the public and open it up for commission discussion. Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Providing the terminology is changed in the engineer's letter, or we somehow make that a requirement with respect to the pole collapse, as opposed, it shall be as opposed to could be. I don't have any problem with making findings, and I do respect the Harton's comment about whether or not it needs to be a pine pole versus a monopole. I'm not sure that we're really disguising anything in this case because it's going to extend so far above the tree line. And I suggest it's really unnecessary to add the pine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Mr. Schwartz, would you please start drafting a condition regarding the correct language that Commissioner, okay, you already have done that. So it states the applicant shall provide a letter from a licensed engineer that assures that the tower would only collapse upon itself or within the subject property prior to issuance of a building permit. Okay, very good. And the applicant is agreeable to that. Commissioner Ruggles, you're next. And I would like to know what each commissioner thinks about the monopole being disguised as a monopine. So with that, Commissioner Ruggles.
Okay, thank you very much. One thing that I would like to mention, I know Commissioner Wilson looked at the propagation maps and noted that perhaps Williams is not shown in the correct location. However, one thing I did find out, you can blow those up in the data that was sent to us online in our packet, about 400%. You can very clearly see how this meshes with coverage in Williams. That I think is kind of a non-issue if you look at the maps blown up, so you can tell where everything is. The other thing is that one member of the public did address the fact that there are gaps in the coverage. Since I am out in the parks in Spring Valley area every week, I have heard from other people I have talked to out there that that is sorely needed in terms of reception in parks, areas to the east of parks, out to Brannigan Park, and also south of I-40. The other thing I did was to look at independent information that is available online that has basically looked at reception for both Verizon and AT&T. I looked at those specifically, and I find that the information that is available is not a propagation map, but basically is data that is reception along, say, I-40 and other roads in the area, which provide access to the areas where people live out there. And it is extremely spotty. I think the propagation maps that we're seeing basically say it all to me. As far as the tower itself goes, that I guess is a matter of what beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So considering the location and how far at the back of the property it is, I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, whether we require a monopine to disguise it. Either way, it's going to be something that can get your attention. And I know people's reaction to some of our monopines is, "You've got to be kidding me. You think I believe that's a pine tree?" Well, that kind of says it in terms of the aesthetics of it. The other thing is that in looking at this, of course, we cannot consider radio frequency emissions. The other thing that has come up in the past is property values and the effect that something like that would have. And that's something that I believe we cannot consider either. In terms of propagation, that is going to cover a lot of area, especially to the east of there. It is a real problem for people in that area. So that being said, one other thing I would like to mention is that I think it's been mentioned that the FCC has requirements for the field strength for radio frequency emissions from cell towers. That is their purview. So we can't really address that either. I can make the findings for this based on the benefits that that people will see, especially along I-40 and in a large part of the Parks area. So that being said, I am in full support of approving this, and I can make the findings for it based on all the criteria presented. That's not a problem for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. Commissioner Towhee?
Thank you. I agree with Commissioner Ruggles, and I think there, just knowing what doesn't come into play as consideration is always good to know and reiterate what he did. Either way, whether it be a pole or the fake pine, it doesn't matter to me, but I do make the findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Towhee. Vice Chair Burton?
Yeah, I can make the findings, especially for coverage need. I am looking at the line rendering that was provided in our packet with regards to the mono pine versus the monopole. And I'm not sure that people grasp what the monopole is truly going to look like. It's not just what's there times, double the height. We're talking about something that's at least double the width, double the height, and we'll have several arrays around it that stick out. So what's there right now is just a post, basically. What's going to be there is not a post. So, I don't know if people really want to look at that or if they'd rather look at the monopine, based on what I'm seeing from the renderings. And it did look like from the colored renderings that they provided. See, normally I have an issue with the monopines because they don't match our tree colors green, but their renderings looked very much like our more olive toned tree colors. So I have to wonder if they're making some adjustment on color or not, or if that rendering was not accurately representative of what will be seen. So I can make the findings either way. I'm leaning more towards probably a better idea to have the monopine than the monopole, because the monopole is just kind of ugly without the funky looking tree around it. But those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Burton. Commissioner Walsh?
I can make the findings, and I appreciate the information that Commissioner Ruggles gave us. And I don't care if it's a monopole or a fake pine tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Best.
I can make the findings. One of the neighbors asked about how to get information from the federal government, and I think that's a fair question, even though it's beyond our jurisdiction. I think it would be fair if we had an answer for that, because that can be somewhat daunting. I think that would be a reasonable thing for staff to look into, just to hand out a website or somebody to call. As far as monopines, there's monopines and monopines. There's one on the put in about 2 years ago on the research campus, the east campus of the Museum of Northern Arizona. That looks great. It looks like a pine tree. It's got the right color, and so hopefully it will be one of those. And maybe this is something else that we should get into a little bit obviously a gray monopine and a monopine that matches the color of our ponderosa pines. Those are two very different things. So I can make the findings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Williams.
I also can make the findings. I am more partial to the monopine for the reasons Commissioner Burton pointed out. But other than that, we can't take into account property values or EMFs or anything like that. So I can make the findings.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Williams. This is Chair Ontiveros, and I do want to say, I just want to add on just for a little bit of clarification to Commissioner Ruggles' very well described example of how we have to go through doing this. But for the people that are in the public that have expressed opposition, I just want to say that there is a formula that this commission has to follow, and it's very specific to cell tower application, and it's an evaluation flow chart. And the first thing that we have to answer is, does the proposed cell tower meet local jurisdictions' zoning requirements? All of the commissioners, including myself, have said, yes, they do. So if the answer is yes, it is a very simple thing. We must approve the cell tower. I do also want to say that I do understand the concerns that have been expressed this evening regarding perceived health effects. But as long as the builder of this cell tower is complying with FCC regulations concerning radio frequency emissions, this commission is bound by law not to base any decision on that issue. So we don't have a lot of wiggle room in these other than, does it meet the local jurisdiction's zoning requirements? And all the commissioners have expressed that they can make the findings. So I hope that helps explain a little bit of it. And it looks like we're going to be headed to a motion here for approval. So if the commissioners would give me a motion in a second, please. And let's be sure that we note in there in this motion with the addition of condition number 5.
And are we all in agreement that monopine is preferable?
Yeah, I think we are.
Okay, then
Because
I'll make.
I listened to what was going through. I'm kind of getting that we are. Commissioner Ruggles, I see you unmuted.
I was just going to agree with our vice chair on that point.
Yeah. You
I
made a pretty strong argument, Vice Chair Burton.
I was looking at that line drawing very carefully going, I don't want to look at something that looks that mechanical. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve CUP 24016 with the additional number 5 that is shown on the screen currently.
I will second that.
Okay, I've got a motion by Vice Chair Burton, a second by Commissioner Ruggles for approval of CUP 24016. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Ruggles?
Aye.
Commissioner Towhee?
Aye.
Vice Chair Burton?
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh?
Aye.
Commissioner Best?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
This is Chair Ontiveros, and I also vote aye. The motion passes unanimously. The final item on the agenda this evening is a call to the public for items not on the agenda. So is there anyone in the public that wishes to address the commission this evening for items not on the agenda? If so, please raise your hand or unmute. Okay, and I am not seeing any hands raised or any unmutes. My clock shows 6:47 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone. Thank you.
Night all.